The moment you start explaining yourself to people who didn't ask, you've already lost the conversation. Not the argument, the conversation. Because explaining when no one asked tells the room something it didn't need to know. That their opinion of you is a problem you are actively trying to solve. And once the room knows that, once it understands that your discomfort with their perception is available to be managed, it has leverage. Not because anyone decided to use it, but because you handed it over. Every unnecessary explanation is a small act of asking for permission. You have been asking for a long time. There is something specific happening in another person's mind when you choose not to fill the space. By the end of this, I want you to understand exactly what it is. Because once you see it, you will never feel the same compulsion to explain. We have been taught that speaking up is confidence. And it is. So is knowing when not to. Every word you speak is a disclosure, not just of information, but of something more precise. Your level of certainty, your need to be understood, your tolerance for being misread. The woman who speaks before she needs to is not communicating more effectively. She is giving the room more than it required. Silence holds things inside itself rather than releasing them. It communicates that you have considered what is being offered and decided what is worth your response, and that what is not worth your response will remain unreleased. Not because you have nothing there, because you chose not to give it. Silence is not the absence of communication. It's communication with all the vulnerability removed. That is not distance. That is precision. Alexandria, 400 CE. The greatest intellectual city in the ancient world. The crossroads of Greek philosophy, Roman power, and Egyptian knowledge. The library, the lecture halls, the constant hum of the most educated people alive, all trying to outthink each other. And in the middle of it, a woman teaching mathematics and astronomy in public. Her name was Hypatia. Students came from Greece, from Rome, from Syria. Weeks of travel across open water specifically to sit in her lectures, not to visit the city, to hear her. She wrote on the movements of celestial bodies, on conic sections, on instruments for measuring the stars. When a student came to her with a question, she did not rush to answer. She let the question sit. She held the silence until she had something worth placing inside it. And when she finally spoke, what arrived was exact. Not impressive, exact. Her students described her lecture not by what she said, but by what happened in the room when she said it. The particular quality of stillness before she opened her mouth. She was murdered by a political mob in 415 CE. The most learned person in the world, killed because her influence had become intolerable to those who couldn't match it. But her students had already carried her ideas in the ancient world. Words chosen that carefully tend to last. When we encounter silence where we expect words, the brain generates discomfort. And to resolve that discomfort, we fill the gap ourselves. We assign motives. We interpret. We project whatever internal narrative is most available to us. And almost always, the story we construct about someone's silence is more revealing of ourselves than of them. This is why silence has power in conflict. When you don't immediately defend yourself, the other person has to sit with what they just said. Many people will soften, retract, or become uncertain, not because you argued, but because you gave them room to actually hear themselves. The woman who can hold silence in a moment of pressure communicates something that no defense could. That she is not afraid of the pause. The woman who speaks last usually wins the room, not because she waited, because she listened to everything everyone else gave away first. There is a version of you that already knows how to do this. She has used silence before, in moments high stakes enough to make her careful. She has held a pause and felt the other person shift. She has said nothing and watched the room fill itself with information she never would have received if she had spoken first. She knows. The question is whether you trust her in the smaller moments. When the stakes feel lower, when the silence feels dangerous rather than deliberate, when the urge to explain, to soften, to feel, feels like kindness rather than what it usually is. Fear of being misunderstood. If you have spent years filling silences because you were afraid of what your quietness might mean, that is not weakness. That is what you were trained to do in rooms that kept asking for your explanation until you forgot that withholding was even an option. You are remembering now. You cannot be misunderstood by silence. Silence has no content for anyone to misread. Clarity is not produced by more words. It is produced by fewer, better chosen ones, and by the silence around them that gives them weight. The most significant things ever communicated to you did not arrive in speeches. They arrived in a pause, a look, a decision made without announcement that told you everything a conversation never could have. Let silence be part of what you offer. Let it say, I have considered this. I am not reacting. I know what I have to say, and I'm choosing when to say it. That is not coldness. That is authority. If you want to know where you are already leaking power, I built a free diagnostic for this. 20 questions scored. It will show you the specific pattern running you. Link in the description. And if you want to go deeper than a single video, the RAIN workbook is coming. Silence, boundaries, frame control, a 90-day practice plan. Join the waitlist in the description and you'll be the first to know when it drops. New video every Friday on the Cleopatra mindset. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. This is Gray, and until next time, say less, mean more.